Good morning everyone, welcome back to Meadowcroft Farm. Firstly, just want to say thank you to everyone that is watching our videos and liking and commenting. It really inspires us and motivates us to keep going. And on that note, we've had quite a few requests to do more pruning videos. So we thought today that we would do a more in-depth step-by-step approach to how we would tackle a jackfruit tree from beginning to end.
These haven't been pruned at all. We've shaped them and then we've allowed them to grow, and now this is basically going to be the first pruning.
Yeah, so we thought we'd do, a lot of our previous videos have been more general pruning tips and tricks, I suppose you would say. So we thought for this one we would do an actual step-by-step, more detailed approach to how we would tackle.
And it also follows up from a previous video from a couple of weeks ago of the start of the shaping, the pruning of the small trees and why we're doing it, and then this is what we end up with. Yeah.
So let's get into it. Okay, so this is one of the trees that we are going to prune today, and as you can see, it needs some height taken out. It's got quite tall and it's also quite dense, so we're going to thin it out a little bit to allow more light interception. So step one is to take the height out. We have some branches here that are about 3 meters high, which is where we kind of want them to be. But then to the left of that, you can see we've got 3 branches that are significantly taller. So the first step is to bring those branches down to the height of these other ones just on the side there, to about 3 meters. So Ian's going to do that right now. So as you can see with this branch, this is one that we need to bring the height down. And Ian is going to cut right above a branch that heads in towards the tree. And the reason for that is that if he was to make the cut above a branch that's heading out, as he's just showing you there, that branch will then become vigorous and will potentially impact the tree that's next to it. Whereas if he cuts above a branch that is heading in towards the tree, then that branch will start to become more vigorous and will provide some shade once we start taking out some of these lower branches, because we do need some shade and we really don't want to have vigorous branches heading out into the tree next to it. So that's the reason for why he's making the cut where he is. So we've taken about 2 meters.
And the next one. So I need to go around to the other side, the third one.
Yeah, we've got one more to do over there. Okay, so step one is complete. Ian has taken down the height of 3 of those branches, so you can see now that it is a lot better shape.
Look at the thickness.
So as you can see here, this is how we grow the trees. We've mentioned this before in the shaping management video that we did.
4 or 5 litres.
Try and grow them in a vase-like shape with about 4 or 5 litres. So this one, Ian has taken the height off of this branch, that branch, and this one in here, and you can definitely see that those branches are significantly thicker than these 2 leaders, which Ian hasn't pruned today. So these 3 with the thicker branches were definitely the more dominant, and so they had grown quite tall. Now what we want to do is to not prune these 2 to allow them to become more dominant and start to thicken up like the other 3 branches so that they can actually hold fruit.
Okay, step 2 is going to be opening up the tree itself to let the light in. Now we'll remove, these are our primary leaders, of which we have 5 or 6. I've already started, you'll see little marks down here. We remove any of the secondary branches to within a metre and a half of where the branching starts. This is to allow the light in, which then will stimulate the flowering. It needs the light to stimulate the flowering. So that's why we're going to open everything up. So it's a matter of, we're going to be removing these branches here, and if we've removed enough, we'll go round all of the branches first, then step back and have a look. Always worth just stepping back. You can't always see when you're really close, you can't see the overall effect. So do a little bit on all of them, step back, have a look, see if one side of the tree is darker than the other. So remove these. Sorry, are these hitting me?
Just a little bit. And obviously, as part of this, it goes without saying that you wouldn't be taking off your fruiting wood.
No, we like fruit. What I do, I just said do. If you come down here, we've got this fruiting wood here, which has got 3 fruit on. I leave it until they've developed and I know that they're going to be a good fruit set, a good shape, and then take this with these other 2 off so that all the energy goes into the one. When I do the cut, I do it at a place, because sap will flow from here, so I do it far enough out that sap doesn't drop onto the fruit, and mark the fruit. What you can do if you want, and I sometimes do, is take a bit of leaf, stick it on, and that just stops the flow. That will eventually drop off. So need to continue to remove some of these secondary branches off these other primaries. God, I love these pruners. This is so much easier.
Okay, so Ian has completed step 2, which was thinning out from the inside, branch by branch. And as you can see, the tree is now a lot more open than it was before. Plenty of light interception getting in. So he's removed secondary branches off each limb to about a metre and a half from the base trunk. Okay, so we're now on to step 3, and that's pretty much where we will go around and see if we've got any dominant branches that we can take out in an attempt to just try and calm the tree down. So you can see here on this branch that Ian's already pruned the top off, that he's pointing there with his pruners to a dominant branch. It's certainly more dominant than any of the other secondary branches, and so quite vigorous. And in order to calm the tree down, we are going to take that off. Ian, do you want to explain whereabouts you would make the cut in relation to the main leader?
Just here, you'll see a mark. Inside to the left of this way, if you cut in there, you're cutting into this leader. So I'll just cut up here. Doesn't have to be ultra close. It will just slowly rot back and just leave a mark like any of these have done here. And we just leave that stub and that will just die back. But leaving that in situation, it's so vigorous that would have just taken off.
Yeah. And so when you make the cut, you just want to make sure you don't go too close to the colour, as it were,
Yeah.
of that branch. Yeah.
This here, on all of these, it's the same effect, but obviously smaller.
Yes. Yeah.
So these are our primary leaders, these are our secondary branches, and these will potentially shade out. So there's two here. The top one, this one will become suckering wood. Take that off. This is really thin, weak. This will just die back, as will this. Do a light pruning on each of the branches. Step back, have a look. You don't want too much sunlight, otherwise that will burn your fruit, because these should be protected from the direct sunlight. So it's just a light prune on everything. Step back, have a look. If you're happy with it, leave it.
Yeah. And that pretty much sums up step 3. So take out any dominant branches that might become too vigorous, and then a light pruning if you need it to allow for good light interception, but to also allow for enough shade that your fruit isn't actually getting sunburnt. This is another reason why trellising is sometimes not the best idea. You really cannot easily get around the circumference of your tree when you have trellising wire in the way. Anyway, I digress. While Ian just continues to prune off any dominant branches and thin out, I just want to show you guys, you can see here that our smaller branches that we spoke about earlier that we need to thicken up a little bit are leaning out. So you can probably see there, compared to the thicker branches, which have got that beautiful, nice vase shape going on. These two to the left of the screen are leaning somewhat. So the plan after we finish this job will probably be to just tie them with some soft ties and string and pull them in, maybe for about a season or so, just until they start to thicken up. So Ian can show you there just how much we would probably just bring them in.
And because we haven't pruned them and they're higher than these 3 more established branches, they will become more dominant because they are higher. That will allow them to thicken up.
Yeah, and as they get stronger, they'll start to sit into that shape then. Okay, so Ian has finished lightly pruning this tree, and as you can see, it looks really good now. Height's come down, middle has been opened up nicely, we've got good light interception but enough shading for the fruit. And if I swing over to the left, there you will see the other tree that we've got to move on to later. So it just shows the difference in opening it up. So step 4 now will be to go and get the chipper and to chip all of these prunings back underneath the tree.
The reason being, they've taken a certain amount of the fertilizer that we've put out, so they will contain calcium and magnesium and stuff. So chip them back, they will put nutrients back into the ground. They, again, can't emphasize, smother out any weeds. They keep moisture in the ground, so we've got less watering, less weeding to do. Just all round it's better.
Yep. So
it's building soil. Building soil's important, really important.
Yeah, do not skip this step. Okay, we'll go get the chipper. Okay, so we have successfully finished step 4, which was to mulch all the prunings that we took off. And as you can see, they are all nicely around the bases of the tree now, providing some good mulch there. Ian finished that tree as well, so you can see that we've brought the height down on both. We have thinned out in the middle of the tree to allow more airflow and light interception. And now we've just stood back to look at, is there anything else that we need to do for these trees? And for this one, as we mentioned before, we need to bring in these thinner branches into a more vase shape structure like the other branches. And Ian is going to do that using soft ties. So the good thing about the soft ties is that they don't cut into the bark. If we were to just use string, then it would cut into the bark and potentially cause entry for disease.
There's quite thin bark on the young wood. It's a matter of putting ties on an opposite branch and then using that to pull this more upright. The tops of these will be higher than the other branches now. Get more sort of dominance because they're higher branches, and then these will thicken up.